Craig Lee said before that we are living in extraordinary times. Let me try to rephrase this coming from the funding agency, that we are living at times of financial crisis or financial downturn, but also opportunity times for something new that it might come, or hopefully that it will come. We just don't know what something new is. However, one thing is important, that we do continue and that we do strengthen our support of innovation. This innovation is really the path that can really lead to economic recovery. The link between standardization and innovation was made at the highest political level in Europe in a meeting of the European Council of Ministers of Research, Education and Industry, which is actually the highest level political committee that decides on those matters, in their meeting on the 25th of September 2008, where they recognized the essential contribution of standards towards developing innovation and competitiveness by facilitating access to markets, enabling interoperability between new and existing products, services, and processes, enhancing protection of users, and giving consumers confidence in innovations and disseminating research results. They recognize also the role of standards in encouraging innovation in areas such as services, and the role of standards to strengthen the internal market in Europe, which is particularly important for Europe, and to support a better regulation policy. They also recommended a number of things, like that public research bodies and financiers of research programs should examine at regular times, at decisive periods, the research projects and the interest in developing standards. So what they are trying to do is that they are trying to suggest that every research project financed by public authorities should be linked to standards. They also recommend that we should increase the value of participation in standardization activities in the careers of researchers. So they are suggesting that the careers of researchers should be more closely linked to their contribution to standards. They recommend to improve the position of standardization in education, so students in the secondary education in particular to be more familiar with the benefits and the challenges of standards. They invite standards bodies to further facilitate participation in standardization by SMEs, consumers, trade unions, and bodies representing societal interests. And they also invite or ask standard bodies to be particularly vigilant when developing standards based on proprietary technologies to ensure that the user needs are served, that they are open to all users. And they highlight in particular the need for IPR to be available under fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory conditions. The OGF. I think that we should recognize the major contributions of the OGF in distributed computing so far, particularly as funding agency we recognize the community structuring effect that it brought as all these years it brought together technologies, users, vendors, funding agencies, others to a more extent, others to a lesser extent. The distributed computing community and OGF are finding today themselves at the crossroads, with concepts like cloud computing, virtualization emerging, and with an unknown future. We believe that the international community action, whichever path is decided to go, is important to ensure the user benefit. So to ensure that the users remain well informed on technology and that there is sufficient user demand always raised to vendors for interoperability, that there is level playing field for industry, and that eventually all these efforts foster innovation. The distributed computing community faces important challenges and opportunities, like to define the path, what is next, like to balance the interests between academia and industry, like to adopt new approaches, including the OGF, for example, testing, certification, if this should be integrated in the activities in order to approach more industry, and the marketing approach, which is extremely important in order to make known to the public what is the value proposition. And of course, in this, we recognize that the financial viability of this international, let's say, community effort, and in particular OGF now that represents, is particularly important. That's why we are supporting as European Union the works of the OGF, And of course, the OGF on its side needs to continuously prove its efficiency in order to justify this fund. I try to summarize here the European Union's continued support to grids and to OGF. So in the last 8 years, the European Union has invested about €500 million for the development of grid technologies and for infrastructure deployments. New investments are planned for the years 2009-2010. I'll speak a bit later about that. Concerning the OGF event, almost all EU-funded projects, grid projects, are contributing to the OGF activities. We are supporting the majority of the EU scientist trips, participation in OGF events, and we're funding projects like ogf-europe, that Ivana presented before, which are dedicated to support the OGF works and the outreach activities. I'm not going to talk about the EGI, which is the future of the European model, let's say, in providing grid services. Bob spoke about this before. There was a session earlier today about this. The only thing that I would say is that we do expect that through this model, the European contributions to standards, to grid and distributed computing standards, will be more channeled, will be more coordinated, so will increase. And we eventually think that this will also increase or reinforce the role of the OGF. Our provisional funding plans for the years 2009-2010 of the infrastructure area. We're planning one call towards the end of 2009 with an indicative budget of €95 million. This does not include the budget for supercomputing infrastructure, so if there are any people from this community, don't worry, there is additional budget for that. To support the creation of the EGI, to launch EU action on software and services in support of the EGI, in support of high-performance computing. This is also an action to support the further developments of middleware, as we believe that this should be independent of the EGI. And as users, it's extremely important in this process to support the involvement of users and the use of the infrastructure by users. And a number of support measures, in addition, where they will host international cooperation activities, among other actions, and prospective and strategic studies for the future. The Catania event offers an excellent opportunity to have progress on this path, to design a new path for the distributed computing community. We believe that all the ingredients are there. The user part, we have the EC user forum, the standards part, Open Grid Forum, the networking and outreach part, ogf-europe. And I would like here to thank the director of the EG, the director of the ogf-europe, the president of the Grid Forum for joining forces for this event. I would also like to thank the Sicilian people for their hospitality and INFSO for hosting this event. I wish to all of us a successful week.